We will call to order the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors work session Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, 4:30 p.m. Board meeting room, 39 Bank Street, Southeast, Chatham, Virginia. Roll call.
Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Dudley.
Present.
Mr. Farmer.
Here.
Mr. Ingram.
Here.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Scares.
Here.
Mr. Warren.
Here. Do we have items to be added to the agenda? Okay.
Easy now.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
We're doing it electronically, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously. For the citizens' convenience, all work sessions and committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meetings. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussions, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no question or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outbursts or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offending person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties, as designated by the board's bylaws, are permitted to make comments under the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. Presentations. Mr. Smitherman, do we have any?
No, sir.
Okay. Staff committee and our constitutional officers report. 6A, Shell Building, DRA, issuance review. Mr. Rowe.
Board members, before you is a resolution and then also a form of support agreement, and this is really procedural as the Virginia Resources Authority, through the loan that we received through the Tobacco Commission, is requiring this. And if everyone remembers, purpose of this is that we at one point in time, the county of course was looking at building a Shell building and financing the entire construction of a Shell building. We took a step back and we said, well, the transaction volume here in the market may result in us not needing to do it and to let the private sector come in. And this board's direction was, if the private sector is willing to do it, we should let them do it and not compete against them. And so, with assistance from our chairman and our IDA at the time, we met with Realty Link Development, and we're able to sell them really on our community, and also giving them the vision that this is a growing location and that we would be able to fill that building. And we have all intentions of working with them to do so. And so as part of that, it was a small loan made to them as a portion. They provided a enforceable corporate guarantee for the full amount, and it's fully secured. And so with that being the case here this evening, this is really a procedural matter for them to, and for us to be able to move forward with the Virginia Resources Authority on that loan. And of course, at the end of the day, they are putting in over $5 million into that facility. And once we have a tenant in that facility, they've committed to go ahead and build another 100,000 square foot facility immediately next door. And anybody that's going down US Highway 58 can see that facility. It's about 80 to 85% complete. And we expect it to be completed by the end of February to mid-March, and we're already getting interest in the building.
So we just brought this to your attention because we're going to ask for this to be added to the consent agenda. This is the sister resolution with the IDA just adopted. And basically, it just says that you will serve as the backstop for the IDA if for some reason they fail to pay this money back to the VRA. This is securitized with letters of credit from the company, and, like we said, it's for $1.150 million. They're putting up significantly more money than we are, and they're a creditworthy company. We're just bringing this to the work session in case you have any questions. We'll be adding this to the consent agenda for you to adopt this support agreement and the covering resolution that goes hand in hand.
Questions? Mr. Hunt, are we just now getting these funds? I thought these funds were supposed to come to us some time ago.
We're working through the Virginia Resources Authority processes. Baden, you want to elaborate on that?
Well, you can talk about it.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the Tobacco Commission, this is really a kind of a first of its kind going through this loan process, so we are the guinea pig. And so with that, they have put it through the Virginia Resources Authority. We've gone through the legal paperwork, term sheets, bond counsel, so on and so forth. And we're now to the point of where we're looking to close on these funds at this time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they originally tell us it would take 30 to 60 days?
That's an accurate statement, correct?
And this is,
Still going.
yeah, still going on, a lot longer than 30 or 60 days. Is that because we were the first and we're working out the bugs, or?
I think it's that and then some other elements.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
Mr. Rowe, who's the general contractor on our shell building?
The general contractor is Blair Construction,
Thank you.
and that was done after a full bid process. You know, the company looked at multiple bidders.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
6B, Convenience Center Cost Estimate Schedule Update. Mr. Hicks.
It looks like he's stuck with me for a while. Tom, we sent you cost proposals. We are currently working on the design for 3 convenience centers. The Level Run Road, which is in the Stanton River District, our estimated cost for that site is $362,761. You have a second site that's close to being finished with the design work in the Callens-Gretna district on, Climax Road. The estimated cost for that center is $633,351. And what we kind of called our super center, which is just off of Meadow Ridge Court, which is near Blair's construction office buildings. Our estimated cost for that site, because of its size and its design to handle a lot more waste and different type waste than we do, at our normal convenience centers. So a person in the northern part of the county doesn't have to drive all the way to the landfill. That estimated cost is, $1,747,033. Can we bring this to you this evening because we need some guidance from the board if you want to move forward on 1, 2, or all of the sites, or a combination there. As we move forward with the purchase of a compactor, a bulldozer, closing cell B, opening cell C, and all these convenience centers. At our retreat, I think our suggestion to the board is that we borrow those funds over a period of time. You can cash flow it, but there'll be times, when you don't have enough cash on hand when those bills are due. So, Tom, if you borrow funds, that can be, spread out over time, and it makes it easier. So, Tom, I guess we need guidance from you as to what we should include in that package if we're going to borrow money. Do you want to do all 3 of the sites, Tom, or do you want to do, something different? So we're really looking guidance from the board on how you want us to proceed on these 3 sites.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Dudley.
on the level run site, what is the estimated, have you got a starting day for that? Or a time that it?
I think we should have all these ready for
Completed.
bid, probably by May.
Okay,
At the latest, and we'll take bids, and, because those bids would have to come back to the board. So I suspect, they would hopefully start, construction sometime this fall, maybe.
okay. Because I'm gotten some questions from individuals and just kind of have an idea anyway. Thank you,
We've been
Rich.
talking about it for at least a year, so I'm sure people are interested in the
Mm-hmm.
status
Some of them
of
are
it.
anxious.
Yeah. Page 7 has a diagram of the construction schedule on our agenda packet.
Our calculations that we gave you, I believe last month, we did include all these costs in those calculations. It's just a matter of how far you want to go with it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, I think 2 of these fall into my district. The Climax one is a need. We need to eliminate those green boxes there, and that'll also help the folks that may not have, live on 29 or remotely commute that way daily. So I fully support the Climax one. Our Super Center, I think we had a really good intentions there. I think we've impressed, I think, our citizens over the few years in terms of their cleanliness of sites that we've offered, the attendance that we have in place. And I think this is just next level, taking it to a regional site in terms of the amount of recycling and other amenities offered. But I was looking at the cost, obviously, and I was thinking the 600 for the Climax Road. So I questioned myself, do I think this would have triple the capacity, triple the number of citizens? And I don't know for sure if we'll get triple. I was almost thinking double, which would be the 1.2 number. So I'm just curious if there's a $500,000 we could get out of the job. I saw the contingency is 265. I didn't see any other big money. I mean, the concrete cost was expensive, the asphalt cost was expensive. So I didn't know if we could reduce it maybe 30% or so in our design, just to eliminate maybe $500,000.
And so these are just, cost estimates. When you actually take bids, you'll know what the actual cost is, and it may come in less, or you may not need, the additional contingency
Okay.
funds. And you make it value engineer some of those costs out once you find out, who your low bidder is.
Comments, questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say, I think with interest rates where we're at now, it'd almost be better to pull the Band-Aid off and go ahead and fund all 3 of these and try to take care of it now while the rates are low. If we wait any longer, there's no telling what's going to happen with the interest rates. How quickly would it be before we could get that loan information to find out where we need to be?
If they do a summer, what EFM is offering right now is to go through the BRA. And typically they have a spring and a fall, and they will sometimes have a summer. The spring application process is due on February 5th. So I think that's
We missed that.
pretty aggressive. We didn't think we would be able to do that, so we're hoping for a summer. But we can definitely do it in the fall. We do have a reimbursement resolution that will allow us to pay ourselves back. So we can knock some of these costs, like for A&E and that type of thing, before we actually have to float that money. And right now, that money is hovering around 2% as it is.
So you could conceivably be out 8 months before your next
I,
opportunity.
I would concur with Mr. Scares. I'd like to see us look into, the feasibility of doing all the projects while interest rates are this low. And then also be able to look at the payback based on what we're getting from outside trash now.
Contract.
I mean, this has been a need for a long time. It's something we've talked about up there for a long time, and, so I'd like to see the numbers showing it all.
And see, at your retreat, Kim's going to show you what all the future projected costs are
Okay.
and, you know, different loan options, so you kind of see how things work out over time.
Okay.
Which
Any
in
other
these stuff,
questions?
we'll put all these in
Mr.
there.
Ingram?
Mr. Hicks, how long has this project been in the works? How long has this need been identified?
I'd say we probably started design on these, I'd say 15 months ago or longer. It's
Okay.
been
Yeah,
I can answer that,
process.
Mr. Ingram. I've been on the board for 5 years, and it's been discussed every year I've been on the board.
That's where I was going with this. If my constituents say there's a need, I think we need to go ahead and do something. And I agree with Mr. Warren, Mr. Scarce, that we need to go ahead and move on it.
All right, so we'll include all three costs in the
Okay.
information that we bring back.
All that information will be available during the end of the month retreat that we have, correct? Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. On that,
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Let's move right into HURT EMS Station 6C, Mr. Hicks.
Okay, we took bids for the HURT EMS building on January the 5th. Back when we first got the COVID funds, we set aside $500,000 for this project, and that included the architectural services, which was estimated at about $84,000. That left you about $416,000 for construction. And of course, we couldn't meet the timeline of December 31st. So we set it up as a bid project. And we actually took bids, as I mentioned, on January the 5th. We received 5 bids. The lowest bid was by Daniel Builders, and their total cost was $757,650. And of course, that is significantly over what we had estimated, you know, and what we set aside in the COVID funds for the project. And we went back to them and asked them, was there a way we could reduce the cost of the project? And if you look on the last page, there's a drawing of the facility. And we added a second bay. And the thought was that if we could park a fire truck in the building at some point in time, we could extend the, cost insurance savings, to our citizens. To put that second bay in, the concrete had to be 9 inches instead of 6 inches, so that added to the cost. I think COVID, has significantly added to the cost. You got shortages of lumber, you got shortages of steel, which I think added to the cost. If we took off that second bay, because that was just a future need, if we could use it in the future, if you took off that second bay, that would reduce the cost by $44,679. They also had a bid of $52,500 for a generator for the facility.
standby.
And if we took that out, that would reduce it by $38,750. And I think Mr. Slim said we could probably use some grant funds for that maybe. But we'd still have to spend about, $30,000 for us to buy it. So I'm not sure that really saves us anything if you take that out. And of course, you got to add architectural services back in there. So, Tom, if you do all those, we're still at about $758,000. And I think that $52,500 actually should be added to that $757,000. So actually you're up to about $800,000 there. And if you take out the 75 or so thousand dollars and you add back the architectural services, and we're up to about $800,000 in this
810,000.
building. And then we'll have some COVID funds coming back, but we don't, I think know exactly what those numbers are at this point. Tom, I guess one other option is we could reject all the bids and we go back and we do something smaller. But you'll have to pay more architectural fees. And I think one thing we found out too, this is, and I forgot the term they use, but because it is an EMS building, it has to be built to a much more stringent standard, which also added to the cost of the project, so. Tom, we think we still need it, but we still got, as I mentioned, it is significantly over the cost of the original budget.
Question from board members?
I have none.
The building, Richard, if we eliminate the one bay, it looks like that building's built so that we could add that back on later?
Yes,
And if it was for a fire truck or whatever that needed 9 inches, we could put 9 inches in the addition,
yes.
but leave the other at 6 inches. Isn't that correct?
I think currently both bays have the extended concrete of 9 inches.
At 9
And
inches.
if you took it
right.
out of the single bay, that saves you, I think he said about $7,000. So the
70
architect's
or 7?
$7,000. So the architect really said that doesn't make much difference. And if you need it in the future, it's there. You got to,
Do we heat those bays?
if you want to park your, vehicles inside, you do.
Well,
I think you could do one. That was our intent, when this project first got started, was just a single bay.
Can we get some information from our public safety director, see where he wants to go with this?
Yeah,
He's fine either way. I talked to him about, rejecting the bids and going back, or either, if we take off that second bay, he's fine with it. I'm just thinking our wildest dreams, we never thought it was going to be this expensive.
you want to bring him up?
Yeah, let's bring him up.
Come on up, Chris.
I didn't know you were here. So.
He snuck in the back, Richard.
You ought to be ashamed letting Richard do all your work. Get up here.
I agree with him. I think that I have no problem rejecting and going back and see if we can do something, change some things. The second bay, we can obviously hold off on that. Your question about does it need to be heated? Yes, sir, they need to be somewhat climate controlled because you have drugs, and those need to have some type of consistent temperature. But nothing has to be, doesn't have to necessarily be air conditioned.
Chris, could
It's
you
more
take,
concerned about-
I cannot
sorry.
understand you with that mask.
I got you. Yes, it does have to be heated. There has to be climate control with the drugs. So, but it doesn't have to be, anything that's excessive. It does not have to be air conditioned, however. Cold affects the drugs worse than heat does. So, and we can cut a bay. That's not a big deal to do right now. We could add that potentially later. We were just looking at the potential. If we did put a fire truck there, I could extend Hertz ISO further up on that end of the county, which would help insurance as far as that goes. But that can also be delayed if we have to. But I have no problem rejecting and going back to the drawing board and seeing what else we can do to cut some cost out of it.
You said Hertz was willing to park.
I had talked to her, yeah, they had some, yes, I talked to them early on about that.
Well, if we're going to only do EMS service out of it to start with, we're
Yes,
not
sir.
going to have an extra bay.
Yes, sir.
Can we does it meet specs to be 6 inches versus 9? And then do a 9-inch when we need the extra bay?
Yes, sir, I think we could do that. Yes, sir.
If we don't need 9 inches for the 2 original, why would we, I know it's $7,000, but why would you do that?
How about the generator cut? To me, that's a little more concerning because of the fact of One, it could be a station there for citizens to go to in the lack of power. Number two, how do the radio systems, other things work if that building's not powered?
Okay, so we have a generator, we have a FEMA grant right now where I'm adding generators to 4 more stations. And one of those stations, we think we overspec a couple of them. So I think we're going to have some money that I'm going to ask FEMA, could I use toward this if we go forward with this and try to use the generator? Plus, we've been buying them cheaper and doing the project like we have than what they spec. So either way, even if we did it, I think we can do it cheaper working through our purchasing and doing through state or federal purchasing ability. We can do it a little cheaper. So what we did ask them to do was rough in for a generator, go ahead and have it all ready to go. And we would try to provide it either A, through a grant, or B, just ourselves, and we could do it cheaper.
So
So you're talking about setting the pad and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
like a Generac?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got you.
Board recognizes Mr. Farmer on the
I'm
call.
not sure if you have read this, but they did delete the underground electrical conduits to that generator in part of the cut.
I have not seen
So
that part
read
yet,
that.
but yeah, I'll look at
There's no
that.
power going out there to that for us to plug in and play. If you just bought the generator alone, it's still gonna be some electrical upgrades.
We did tell them, we had a Zoom meeting with them, and I told them, go ahead and rough in and plumb in for a generator. So because of that, what you just said, it's
Yeah, it
real
says it
easy to
deletes the
do.
panels. Yeah,
Okay.
So just read that if you don't mind.
We'll get that added back in.
Okay, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, I was just asking about those going to rough it in for, doing a pad for the Generac or CAT or whatever type of generator it is. So, yeah, that's what, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yep.
Okay, we good? Everybody good? This is a little different setup. I'm having to spin my head.
Yeah, that's right. Hearing is a little different right now, so
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was overstepping. I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, what do we want to do, gentlemen? Want them to rebid it? You want them to?
Well,
I just add, anytime you bid it and you go back and ask for, cost reductions, you don't get dollar for dollar. I mean, that never happens, so.
Mr. Chairman, if we do it now, we may know the cost. If we do it down the road, materials increase, and it's going to be more then. So, it's entirely up to what the board says, but,
So I suspect it would take you 60 to 90 days to change the scope of the work and rebid it, at least that long.
yeah, and we know that building materials is not getting.
So you do know what your costs are now.
Mr. Chairman. So to me, what we're looking at is this board comfortable with finding somewhere $250,000? Because we had the 500 allocated, and it came in over budget. Just a suggestion, if we are thinking about a potential loan, just perhaps we could put this extra cost in there so we don't have to pull it out of somewhere else.
My question would be, Mr. Smitherman, are we going to have unused COVID funds that could make up a good part of this 250 delta?
You
Well,
can say
since,
what you want to now.
well, Kim's out of the room, so we can answer yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's, we good, we're
Never
moving,
mind.
She's got her hands in her pockets.
are we good, we're moving forward?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Okay,
Thank you, Richard.
We'll get you
Thank
the actual
Chris.
number by this evening. I had some,
okay.
I didn't add that, the generator
Tell her
cost
we
in
spent
there.
a lot of her money.
Kim, they spent money, Kim, when you left the room.
Kim, we spent a bunch of money while you was gone.
We got one more before we do that one.
Okay, Mr. Hicks again.
Okay, we've been working on the Cherry Stone Dam projects, and as you recall, we got a $100,000 grant from the state. We hired a consulting firm by the name of Froling and Robertson, and they looked at the two dams, and they came up with some cheaper cost. I think the cost estimate from the feds was like 21 million. Their cost estimate was about $14 million. And in order to move the project forward, the next phase of the project would be the actual design of the repairs to the dam. That cost is 100% federally funded. And in order to move forward, we need your authorization to submit an application to Washington for those funds. Let's see, that cost estimate from the engineer is about $975,000. So it's a huge cost, but it's a cost. Now, if you look, talking about a total project cost of about $14 million, that's about 7 or 8%, for the engineering cost of the project. The, let's see, Water and Soil Authority approved it last night. It goes before the town of Chatham board at their meeting next month.
Questions or comments from the board? Yes, sir, Mr. Farmer.
Mr. Hicks, sounds great, and I'm in favor. Does this commit us for future obligations depending on the results of the engineer survey?
I suspect once they fund, the actual design of it, they're going to want you to move forward with, a project. But, keep in mind, the state isn't enforcing the rules right now because we're slowly moving it forward. Yeah, and now federal funding, it may be next year before you get funded, or it may be 5 years before you get funded. We don't have any idea what their funding timeline is. But it's a huge cost and a huge project.
Have we gotten to a good point with how much the town percentage-wise, when this plays out, how much the town of Chatham's going to pay? This is,
I'm not sure. We have not had that discussion yet.
I mean, it's their dams, really.
Yeah.
That discussion needs to be had.
Mr. Chairman, we could absolutely start that conversation, and it might be good, just for the record, to send a letter over your signature to the mayor, letting them know that we have this upcoming shared responsibility, and that's important that we determine appropriate cost share.
Board, okay with sending that letter?
I agree with you, Chairman. Yes.
I'm good.
Yes.
Okay. That's what we want to do, Mr. Smitham. Thank you, Richard.
All right, you can wait for the actual application after you get all that worked out. There is no, timeline on that application. We can file it any time. We're just trying to show we're still moving the ball forward, so.
Yes. Well, we need transparency, we need information, we need to know where everybody stands before we really start the clock, so to speak.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. My question is not so much about the construction of the dam, and either you or Mr. Smitherman. Are we actively advocating for public access to the lake once it's completed?
Dr. Miller, I think that it's an excellent point to bring up, and it needs to be included in the letter that we send the mayor. That has been an objective of the county from day one. We have been met with light resistance from the town of Chatham on that matter, but we will certainly include that in our expectation in our letter from Mr. Warren to Mayor Pace.
I will. Thank you. I would like to advocate very strongly that the public have access to not only the lake, but that there also be public access to it.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Vaden, we had some discussions with Chatham about that, I believe, and
Yes, we've had several conversations with them. Light resistance might be a diplomatic term, but we will certainly push for that. I know previous supervisor, Mr. Barber, felt very strongly about this, as did Mr. Warren. And we will include that in our letter, and we will progress towards that goal.
And see, I think one point they made was that they did not want it to be theirs, that it could be owned and, operated by the county, but they didn't want to own and operate, a park out there, so.
I mean, I personally, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would see some advantages from our rec department of having some access down there. And, I mean, you could have some activities there. I mean, it, could be some good safety and involvement with the community. So, yes. Everybody okay with adding that to the letter? We don't want to just say we're going to do that. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Richard. You're going to do the landfill solar lease too, right?
Yes, sir. Tom, at our last meeting, we indicated that a firm had indicated an interest in installing solar at the landfill. We went back and we did an RFP, and we received 5 different, 5 different proposals for installing solar at the landfill. And Dominion Energy, is accepting bids right now through, I believe, July. And if you want to choose a firm to, work on putting solar at our site, they would still have to be approved by Dominion. So all we're doing is saying we'll work with this company, but the end result, would be subject to a final approval by Dominion. Of the 5 proposals we received, the only 2 that actually make sense is the 3rd one and the 4th one. AC Power out of New York was the firm that made the original proposal to us. And they would propose to build a 5.5 megawatt facility, and it would take about 25 acres. Based on the size that would be approved by the power company, they would pay you $7,500 per, megawatt. And if you built all of the 5.5 size facility, the annual lease would be about $41,250 a year. And that goes up at 1.5% a year. So it starts out at $41,250 and it goes up 1.5% a year after that. So, if you did it for 30 years, you would receive $1,548,000 based on that escalation factor. And if you did it for 35 years, Tom, it would be $1.8 million. They would pay you an option on the land of $1,250 per year while they go through this entire steps they have to go through. The second proposal from EDF Renewables, they do it somewhat different. They pay you based on what Dominion would pay them, per megawatt hour. If they pay them $50, your lease would be at about $20,500 a year. If they pay them at $55, our lease would be $52,500 a year. And if they did it at $60, it would be about $85,000 a year. They think, based on past experience, that they will probably be paid somewhere in the $55 to $60 range. For their term would be for an initial 20 years with the option of a second 10-year period, or Dominion may buy it for that last 10 years. Let's see, under the options, for the first year, they pay you $2,000 for the option. For year two, they pay you $4,000. Year three would be $6,000, and year four would be $12,000. And it may take multiple years to work through, the entire steps and everything. AC Power, let's see, you'll basically guarantee that cost. EDF Renewables, you won't know until the project is approved and you know what they pay, then you'll know what you'll get. So that's kind of a gamble. You may get more money, but you don't know that going in. I asked Butch Joyce if we did a 35-year lease. He indicated that based on our current disposal rate, on the side of the actual gas line that that we're currently operating at right now, the sales we're proposing to put this on would not be needed until 2055 or 2060, so that fits within that window. If you added another, let's see, 50,000 tons per year, which would take you up to about, let's see, 180,000 tons a year. You would need those spaces in the year 2045, which doesn't quite fall in the window. But now also keep in mind, you've got all that land on the other side of the pipeline. So if it, if your date's conflicted, instead of going to these sales, you could start on the other side of the pipeline. But you've got years and years and years worth of time on these. What all we're asking you, this evening is to allow us to work with a firm, and they will submit a proposal, to Dominion by July 1st, I think. Then it may be 6 months or a year before it's even approved. It could be, 2 years. So.
Yeah.
But they are currently asking for sites on brownfields and landfills, and they get more points for that. So that's why we're in the game here right now. So.
Question?
So I think AC Power, is a guarantee lease. EDF, you may get more, but you don't know that, until you actually, start construction of the project.
Question from board members?
Mr. Chair, does
Yes.
this money go into the landfill fund?
I would
think it
assume
would.
so, yeah. If you're leasing landfill space, I'm assuming it would have to go into the landfill fund.
They gotta start paying for that sooner or later. Other questions? Do you need any direction tonight?
Yes, they need to get something in soon. I think we kind of, based our meetings on their timeline and their, they start getting their information together now so they can meet their deadlines, for
Does
the
the
application.
staff lean one way or the other?
I believe our recommendation is to move forward with AC Power.
AC Power?
Which was number two?
Sorry,
Was the number two? What?
Well,
with
it's
the
number 4 on the
fluctuation.
sheet.
I'm number 4 on the sheet, but they came to us, originally. And they worked with our consulting engineer on several projects. I think it's just more of a natural fit, and I'd rather have something
I mean, we're not
that I
totally,
know I'm going to get versus something.
we're not totally committing to anything tonight. We're just starting the process.
Yes.
We're allowing our site to be submitted by AC Power to Dominion.
I'll go with one.
Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Four?
If
Absolutely.
you don't like the terms, you can always say no.
Okay, is everybody good? Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Move it on.
All right, Meeting discussion items. Do we have any, Mr. Hunt?
No, sir.
Okay.
We did have a matter that Mr. Farmer wanted to bring to our attention regarding our legislative priorities. And before we turn it over to Mr. Farmer, I do want to ask your assistance, please. I've been getting comments from those watching on TV that if you could bring your microphone to within 10 inches or so of you, there should be enough play in the base to bring them forward if necessary. Otherwise, if you could lean forward, some folks are hard to hear.
Thank you.
So I didn't want to just bring this up on the 7:30 without discussion with you guys prior to, but if you look at the consent agenda and the legislative priority listings, I was concerned that I didn't see one in there calling out for a need and a cry out for help regarding our school budgeting. And to me, not basing it on the number of children, like maybe a typical formula in the classrooms. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about as a group. Did you guys feel that that was something we should add to our priority listing for tonight, going up to Richmond?
And I will remind the board that that was in our original legislative agenda. Unfortunately, in the changing over or moving around, it got omitted by mistake. So it would be appropriate to pull this from consent.
Sure.
And just,
We can add it to new business,
yeah.
and
add it to new
Mr.
business.
Hunt and I can construct a statement.
And what you're referring to is base the ADM money on the students pre-COVID rather than post-COVID numbers.
Right, on old numbers, not on,
And that item is on VACO's legislative agenda, and it's being pushed with legislation this year, but we certainly will pull off that from consent, we'll add it to new business, and we'll wordsmith a bullet point to put on our legislative agenda, because I do believe that's important for us to endorse.
I have a question for the attorney.
Sure.
Instead of doing all that process, I think we're in agreement, we'd want that on there.
Absolutely.
Can Mr. Farmer make that motion to not remove it from the consent agenda, but add that as a legislative item also and not?
Sure, yeah, that's much simpler. And when we put together a list after this meeting, and we shoot to our legislators and we talk to them, we'll have the amended list with that item on there.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right?
Mr. Chairman, I'll read us into closed session if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
All right, we have 2 closed sessions this evening. First one is discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A3, subject matter jail land, purpose, discussion of related property acquisition for a public purpose. B, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8, subject matter, Cool Branch / Franklin EMS agreement, purpose, legal consultation / advice regarding the same.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Electronic. Please cast your votes. Unanimous. We're in closed session.
Now certify the closed session. Be it resolved that the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors meeting on January 19, 2021, the board hereby certifies by a recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from the open meeting requirement of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion Authorize the closed meeting were heard, discuss or consider the closed meeting. If any board member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the act, he shall so state prior to vote, indicate the substance of the departure of the statement shall be recorded in the board's minutes. Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Ingram?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Chairman Warren?
Yes.
Okay, meeting is certified. Closed session.
Thank you. There being no other business to come before the board for the work session, I declare the meeting adjourned.